Today on Blue Collar Coder, converting React to vanillajs. So in my last video on vanillajs, we just created a new project out of thin air. But then I got to thinking, maybe we should try this again from a different angle, like a far more familiar angle. So introducing ye olde to-do list. And this one we're looking at is in React. Let's do a quick look-see. So we can change to-do list items. We can check or uncheck things we've done, and we can add a thing, and then we can save. And the save in this case just goes off to the console. So it's just a demo, nothing too fancy to see here. Okay, so this video is going to be in 3 parts. First, we're going to create this React project right here so that you can be familiar with how that works and what the feature set is. Then I'll create a pretty literate vanillajs version out of it. And then to finish up, we'll take it up a little and take that literate shine off of it and make a version that's a little scrappier, maybe a little bit more kind of native vanillajs. Now, before I begin, a big disclaimer. And this is just to stave off any negative comments. I am a proud React coder. I've been coding in React for at least 5 years now. Easy. I really like React. I'm just a firm believer in having a solid toolkit of options at my disposal so that I can pick the right one for each job. And in particular, when we're looking at performance on the web, it's really good to be able to have options when it comes to when and where we use React and when we might use something lighter like vanillajs. Okay, enough disclaimer. Let's start off building this React version. It's kind of a baseline. I'll start a new project and start up npm. Now I'll add parcel. And finally, I'll make an HTML file, a CSS file, and a JS file. Cool, now into VS Code we go. And first I'll add the script for parcel. And then I'll create the HTML file. And I'm just going to copy in some CSS. Nothing special here, just some styling stuff to make everything big so that it stands out on video. All right, let's head over to the code. First, I'll bring in React and React DOM. Got to add those. Next, I'll create a simple component and render it just to make sure it works. Let's check it over in the browser. Cool, not so bad. So next, I need to create some state for the to-do list, the new to-do, and the next ID. Now I'm going to render that to-do list. Cool, let's go check that out. Looks good. All right, next let's write the code for the checkbox, updating the to-do and the delete button. We'll give that a go. Seems to be doing the trick. Okay, cool. So let's create the add HTML. And the code. And while I'm at it, let's implement the save button so that it pops out at the console. And let's try it all out. Okay, cool. Seems to be working. That was really fast. Man, I love parcel. So good. So going back through the code, we got that state management stuff using useState. Super cool, right on brand for 2019. We got a bunch of small functions that handle the actions. And finally, our rendering code. So now, as React developers, we kind of understand what we're building. So let's do that again, but this time in vanillajs. All right, let me go set up the project. Now, most of this is the same, with the exception that I'm actually going to be putting the add stuff just right there in the HTML, since it's always going to be there. Now I'm going to create some state. And iterate through that to create all the to-dos on the page. Now in add to do, I'll create a bunch of the same elements, but this time instead of using JSX, I'm going to be using document.createElement. And at the end, I'll use the insert before method to insert the to-do before the new to-do container, which is back here in the HTML. So that way, I'll always be adding to the end of the list, but before the add. So let's see if that visually makes sense. And it looks good. So let's add some event listeners. First, for the checkbox, I'll use some code that is very similar to what we had in React. Now, the big deal with this code right here is with the todo.id. That works because we're creating a closure here by creating this function. And that's capturing the state of the to-do reference right at that point when it's created. So that's why the closure that's associated with to-do ID number 1 will only change the done state of to-do ID number 1, and the same for the function for number 2, and so on. Closures are super, super important. When I do programming interviews or phone screens, I ask about closures because, as one of the engineers I work with said to me, she said, closures are JavaScript, and she's totally right about that. All right, so let's finish off the event handlers. We'll add a change event for the text and a click event for the delete button. Now, we really don't know if this is working or not, so let's add the code for the save button to make sure that we're changing the array properly. And try that out. Looks good. So let's finish up by adding the code to add a new to-do. And we'll try this out one more time before heading back to the code for one last look. Looks great. So let's talk about some pros and cons for just a quick second. First, the pros. I'm going to look at the inspector in the vanilla version for the JS, and it is 14 kilobytes. And if we drill into that, you'll see that's a lot of actually parcel stuff for doing the hot module reloading. So that's kind of bulking it out. I mean, obviously, this code is not 14 kilobytes. Now, if I start up the React version and look at that, it's well over a megabyte, but obviously that's in debug mode. So really big savings there, obviously. And that ratio is going to stand between debug and also into production, right? So, React is not going to get drastically smaller and vanilla is not going to get drastically bigger. And now to the cons. So the primary con for me is looking over here at the JavaScript code. You can see that the state and the HTML of the page are not automatically kept in sync. They are kept in sync because I don't currently have any bugs in here that I know of. So when it comes to managing that state. But this was the original primary advantage of React back when it first came out. The state of the component is kept in sync automatically with the state of the DOM tree, which, if there's data involved, means that they're all kept in sync. Now, is that worth the price that you pay for it, size-wise? That's your call. Now, I do want to kind of pare this down a little and show a kind of scrappier version that's honestly maybe a little bit more vanillajs style. All right, let's see. I'll make a copy of this project so you can have both. And of course, this is all on GitHub for your enjoyment. Now, everything in HTML and CSS remains the same. I'm just going to remove the IDs for the state. I don't need those. And I'm going to remove the event listeners from the checkbox and the to-do. Next thing I'm going to do is simplify the delete click handler so that it just deletes its own row. And I'm going to change the add by removing the ID and the state push and moving that object into the add. And then the big change here is going to come down to the save button. And here, instead of just dumping state, because it's now way, way out of sync because I made no attempt to keep it in sync, I'm just going to use the state of the DOM for the state. I'll go and get all the to-dos and turn that into an array. Then I'll filter out the new item. Then I'll get the state of the checkbox and text item in a map. And right here, I'm going to do el.querySelector. And that means I'm actually going to do a query select from this element down. So when you do document.querySelectorAll, that means you're going to go and query select within the entire document. If you do it from a specific element down, then you're just going to go get within that particular element all the way through in all of its children. And join that all together. And voila, let's try it out. Hey, looking pretty good. So being that you're a React developer, if your head has not exploded from this, I congratulate you. Yes, I am using the DOM as the state. And honestly, why not? I mean, the text inputs hold the text just as validly as the state does. So the big pro here is you can't lose sync between the state in the JavaScript land and the DOM because we only ever use the state to initialize the DOM, and then after that, the state is the DOM. So this is the literal definition of old school. This is how we used to do it when JavaScript was used exclusively for this type of thing, for like forms validation. So there you go, a to-do list in React that has two different variants of vanillajs for you to kind of have a look at. I hope you're able to get some good perspective out of this. I'm not going to bore you with some analysis of whether or not you want to do this. If you're watching this, then you have your own reasons to be rethinking vanillajs. So enjoy. Let me know in the comments if you like this, maybe if you want more like it. As always, I'd love to get your likes or subscribes. See you next time on Blue Collar Coder, and be good to each other.